What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And also, I want to say thank you for all the new subscribers. We had a few people that just subscribed to the channel. So thank you guys so much for taking your time and subscribing to my channel. It really does mean a lot. Today, I want to talk about the Canon C200 and also working with RAW files. I remember before purchasing the Canon C200, one of my biggest concerns was, am I even going to be able to edit RAW files on my laptop or on my computer? Because it's just, everybody's talking about how big and how heavy those RAW files are. So I was a little scared jumping into it, because if I was not even able to edit RAW footage on my laptop, then what's the whole point? I know it shoots in RAW and it also shoots in the XF AVC files, which also look amazing in my opinion. But when you guys are shooting in RAW in the C200, it just looks 10 times better. So that was one of my biggest concerns. And after shooting with the Canon C200 a little over a year, shooting in RAW has not really been something scary or something that's like, oh my gosh, am I gonna be able to or not? It really hasn't. It's been very easy. It's been very useful, very fast. The only thing that I am going to say is that saving RAW files are, they're big files, so they do take up a lot of space on your hard drives. Now, I went ahead and purchased Ego Disc Pro CFast card, and this is a 256 gigabyte card. And in this card, I believe I'm able to shoot 30 minutes worth of RAW footage, which that is more than enough for me. I'm not really shooting movies, or I'm not really shooting a whole entire wedding day in RAW. So this is more than enough. Now, something I do want to mention is when you're shooting in RAW, there is something that could be a little scary, because when you're shooting in RAW, you only have one backup. If you're shooting in the XF AVC files, we already know the Canon C200 is a very safe camera because you got dual SD card slot. So you could be simultaneously recording into two SD cards just in case your files corrupt. Now, when you're shooting in RAW, you do not have that flexibility. So that is something to keep in mind. When you're out shooting in RAW, you only have one card that is receiving that information. Now, you could record a backup proxy file into your SD card, but that's not in RAW. That does downgrade your files. Now, I've looked at the proxy files and at the RAW files. Obviously, there is a difference, but the proxy files, very surprisingly, they still look really good. They don't lose that much quality. They still look very good files. So just in case if your card were to corrupt, or if it were to fail on you, you still have the XF AVC files as backup. Now, when I go out and shoot in RAW, I don't shoot everything in RAW. There's certain projects that I'm going to look at and say, you know what, I'm going to shoot this in RAW. I have more time on my hands. This project is a little more flexible. I'm able to be flexible with this project, is not really in a time crunch. Those are the type of projects that I like to shoot in RAW. Or if I'm shooting content for myself and I just want to experiment, have fun, I will shoot that in RAW. But just how on my previous video I was mentioning that I went out to a church and shot an event, this was not shot in RAW. I did think about it, but my turnaround time was so fast, I just went ahead and shot with the XF AVC files, and it was a very quick turnaround time. Didn't really run into no issues. So real quick, I want to jump into how I set up my C200 when I'm shooting in RAW. Just kind of my settings on the camera, and not only my settings, but how I'm exposing and using the LUT that comes in the C200 to better my exposure when I'm shooting in RAW, because this is very important. When you guys are shooting in RAW and you're not setting your exposure correctly, it could be a total fail. So I'm gonna jump into that and show you guys how I'm doing it. Again, I'm not saying this is the perfect way and you guys need to do it this way, but if it helps, feel free to do it this way too. All right, guys, so we are right here. I'm gonna show you guys some of the tools that I use in the Canon C200 to help me expose when I'm shooting in RAW. before I shoot in RAW, I make sure you guys auto black balance your camera. I have tried it out. I've done a before and after with auto black balance, and it does make a difference. And to auto black balance your camera, it's in the first menu, and then you go to your sub page 6. And right here, I just always, tell it okay. Make sure your cap is on your camera. Make sure it's sealed up, and don't have no lens on your camera. All right, so the next thing that I do, I format my CFast card before I start recording in it. And to format it, you go to the third tab up here, as you guys can see, and then I go into the first page, and I just hit initialize media. Initialize media, that's gonna be for your CFast card. Hit the CFast card, hit OK, and just hit OK. Make sure you guys do that. And also your SD cards, format those too if you're gonna be recording a proxy file to your SD cards. Now right here in the same page, if you guys wanna shoot in RAW, you have to go right here also in the same page is the page 3 into the first folder. You guys go right here to main record format. Right now it's set to XF-AVC. That's right now what my camera wants to record. It's just gonna be recording with the XF-AVC files. But if you wanna shoot in RAW, just click on this and tell it you wanna record in RAW to your CFast card. Click on that. And once it does that, you got to be very careful, because I don't know why. If you guys know a workaround this, please let me know. But when you guys switch from RAW to just a regular XF-AVC, it automatically switches your frame rate to 60 frames per second. It doesn't matter if you have your camera in 24 frames per second. Once you do this change, it always shoots you at 60 frames per second. I have no idea why it does that. If you guys know why it does that, let me know down in the comments if there's a fix for that. But that's just an extra step you have to do. Make sure you guys go back and reset your frame rate to 24 frames per second if that's what you want to shoot at. So that's something to keep in mind. And then also, once you guys have that set up, and if you want to record, right now your camera is ready to record in RAW right now, but if you also want to record a backup to your SD card, if you guys have an SD card, you go to sub record format. Right now it's turned off. So right now it's only recording to my CFast card. That's it. It's not going to record me a backup to my SD cards, but I want to turn that on because I always want a backup. So go right here to sub record format, click on that, and click on XF-AVC. Awesome. So right now, as you guys can see up here, right now it's recording to your CFast. You got 30 minutes in your CFast card remaining to record in RAW, and then it's also doing a backup that's going into your SD card, and that backup is going into slot A. Now, something to keep in mind before you guys start recording. This is very important. I made a mistake and I wasn't doing this, and I noticed that sometimes my exposure was good, sometimes my exposure was way off, like it wasn't consistent when I was shooting in RAW, and it was a little frustrating. And then I found out that you ought to make sure when you're monitoring your RAW footage, the camera's not going to monitor in a C-Log 2, which that's RAW. It's only going to monitor your screen in C-Log 3. So you have to go to preset and change your preset and make sure it's displaying on the screen C-Log 3. Right now, if I were to record RAW right now, as you guys can see, my gamma curve is in YDR. So if I'm trying to expose and I'm following the rules and not, expose the skin tones at 55 IRE or at 50 IRE, it's going to be way off when I import this footage, and I'm going to say, hey man, why is my footage so noisy? It's because I'm monitoring my waveforms and my zebras and my display in YDR, which that's incorrect. So I have to go to preset, and I will select either you guys can monitor in Canon Log 1 or Canon Log 3. This is going to give you the correct exposure when you're monitoring it. So I'll go to Canon Log 3. So now I'm monitoring my image in Canon Log 3, which is going to give me the same or close enough values so I can have correct exposure. Once I do that, I go to my LUTs and I click on this, and then I go to video and I turn on my LUT to a BT709 just so I can monitor my LUT while I'm setting my exposure. Hopefully this makes sense, but I'll show you guys right now my display. So right now, as you guys can see, this gives you all the information right here. I'm recording RAW, as you guys can see up here, to my CFast card, and then I'm also recording a backup to my SD card, which is inside of slot A, and I am actually on C-Log 3. So my screen, when I start setting my exposure, my screen is reading the C-Log 3 values. But I also have that LUT turned on, and my LUT is going to turn in, it's kind of like a Rec 709 LUT for C-Log 3. Hopefully that makes sense. So the benefit of doing this is that when I'm exposing, if I'm using zebras or if I'm using my waveform, usually when I'm recording in RAW, I try to keep my image not going higher than 80 to 90 IRE. I try to stay below 80 IRE, and I'm monitoring my waveform like that. If I'm shooting outdoor and I'm shooting landscape, I try my best to stay within those values. So this is pretty much how I set it up. Now, one last thing I want to say real quick. I have my cap on right now, so that's why it looks all black. But another thing I do want to mention is my ISO. I do my best. If you guys could, do your best to keep your ISO at 800. 800 ISO is like the base ISO, so that's where you'll get the most dynamic range at ISO 800. If you guys have to do any changes, don't forget you guys have your ND filters right here. Your ND filters come so safe. Like they come in handy so much. And these things right here, like your ND filters are so good. So use your ND filters, and if you got to adjust anything else, use your f-stop, so you can do your best to keep your ISO at 800, and that'll give you an amazing image. So when I'm out shooting, this is how I have my display. Now, if I don't want to see all these, all this information, and I want to see what I'm looking at when I'm setting my exposure, I always just toggle between this display button and the bottom left of your screen, and I'll just it'll show me the rule of thirds, or just have my screen clean. And if I got to see my waveforms again, I just go ahead and turn it on, and I got all my information here. Or I can just turn off my waveforms from the side of the C200. It gives you those options. As you guys can see, it just goes on and off. Like, this stuff is so helpful, and this comes in handy. Like, I use these tools 100% of the times when I'm shooting using the C200, and that's why I think the C200 is so convenient when you're filming. So that's pretty much it, guys. I just wanted to make this video showing you guys how I set up my C200 when I shoot in RAW, and just kind of show you guys the settings on my camera. Hopefully this was helpful for some of you guys that just picked up the C200, or that are thinking of getting the C200. Later on, I might make a video on how I import my files on Final Cut Pro and how I convert them into proxy files and all that stuff. If you guys are interested in that video, let me know down in the comments so I can kind of make that video according to you guys' questions. So also, the CF card that I'm using, I will leave a link to that card down in my bio, and also my USB adapter that I use. That's been a very good adapter that I've been using when I'm transferring my CF card files into my computer. It's super fast. It works really good. I will leave all that information down in my description, so make sure you guys take a look at that. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'll catch you guys on our next video.